Cameron, welcome to the Shift Podcast.
Hi. Thank you.
Ex-
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to chat. Always nice to speak with other people who are just as passionate about learning and design and all the good stuff that is so very important for organizations today. Before we dive into all of that, tell me a little bit about take me back to, I'm curious what you studied. How did you get into this field? You started your own business in that. Talk me
Yeah.
through it. How did you get here?
Yeah, thanks so much. I love geeking out on learning design and everything like that. So I'm just really grateful to be here as well. But yeah, I got into learning design when I was going to school. I was uh I was at UVU, Utah Valley University, and I was living in my brother's I was renting out his basement apartment. He was married and he was working for a sort of like a multimedia studio. And he got a job and they did something for Hewlett Packard, and it was just like some PowerPoint slide cleanup. And at the time I was kind of like, what do I want to do with my life? And I had just gotten home from a mission, kind of serving people. It was a 2-year mission, and went out and just did a lot of service projects and service for people. And it was for my church or whatever, and it was a wonderful experience. And when I got home, I was really impacted by that, and I thought, what could I be doing that would be um, kind of like a life mission, but also support people. And I just really grew to love people on my mission, and wanted to do that. So I was kind of looking at business as sort of a way for me to be able to provide, impact and be able to kind of grow. I wanted to be able to provide for more families in my own family. And I love that about business, that it kind of does that for us all, right? Like it supports every one of us. And so um, I was thinking entrepreneurship and just starting my own business. And so anyways, I was thinking in that mindset. And then he did this project for Hewlett Packard, and it was some slide cleanup, and it ended up going super well. And he's like, hey, you really ought to look into this. And you know, he's like, you could do this on the side while you're going to school. And so I started kind of doing that. And my brother really helped start our company. Carbonated Labs was the original name. Then we were just Key Learning. And so yeah, we started doing just PowerPoint cleanup stuff. And then that got really into like Articulate Presenter at the time, building out e-learning courses. And we always kind of had like a multimedia sort of sense to us. And so we got really creative, and it was just really fun. We started doing like little 3D avatars, characters that would come on the screen, and we got introduced to a really great um, person that does it in the pharma space. And then yeah, I just started to hire more and more people, and really just that's what kind of started it all. And then I've been doing it now for 12 years, and we have a big team of instructional designers, e-learning developers, and multimedia gurus. We're about 50 people, and that's what yeah started me into it all. And ever since then, I've just eaten everything up that I could, and that's being introduced to you as well, and everything like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a fun journey.
very cool. And do you consider yourself a creative person as well, or do you hire the creatives?
No, I appreciate that. I am the type of personality that I think I'm actually really creative. Putting it down on paper and actually performing the art of doing it. Um, Others definitely do that way stronger than me. But I can totally critique it, and kind of that I can have the vision of it, and I can also I'm detail oriented, to where I can think through that solution, kind of think creatively, and be a very good soundboard. And
Mhm.
um, and yeah, so I love that creative piece. I'm very musical, and I love music and I love writing. Um, so that part of me, but as far as like artistry, visual design, I'm a
Mm.
strong critique of it, and I can articulate it well, but putting it down for whatever reason and like, mocking it up, not so much as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would
No, I'm
still
just
consider
always
myself
curious.
creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's interesting because, learning is such a big topic in general, right? Like it's like we're just continuous learning, whether you're presenting something and you're teaching a crowd, whether you're an organization and you're trying to, incorporate learning in your organization, like the design of it is so important. I don't know about you, but I'm sure everybody who's listening has sat through some really bad presentations, through some really bad learning design, and it's like, just generally speaking, like that's something we lack. Yet I don't think we understand the impact of it. Because I'm directly in learning and development, I understand the impact of it. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, like when, the clients that you work with, what kind of clients do typical, well, like what kind of problems you're solving for them? Right,
Mhm.
when it comes to learning, and what are some of the, I don't know, surprising things that you have found working with clients that are just like, I don't know, maybe you found like a theme among the clients or people that come to you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. That's a really good question, actually. And as far as the problems that we're solving and the types of clients, we have served, we're really industry agnostic, but we serve like really big, well-known brands and clients, but also little tiny ones as well. And so I guess a common theme that I've seen or that I've come to realize is that there's all kinds of different modes and sort of like approaches to learning design. And there's very simple things, but there's also things where you can, get crazy with technology and things like that, and like things that you can leverage. Um, so much of it all just comes down to like effective communication in my viewpoint, and really like understanding like the heart of a person. Um, and so I can go more into that, but a lot of what it is just like, it's solving for communication, as far as like a common theme.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, it's, like I say, we're really industry agnostic. And so um, everything that we build is so custom and tailored towards, the unique like learning need of our clients, and very specific, usually very specific content. Um, but yeah, basically like, when we look at different solutions and things like that, we can get really, really creative on like price, and like injecting all types of tips and tricks and multimedia pieces. And something that I've come to realize, like I say, is just, you know, sometimes uh, it could be a very simple solution where it's like, hey, let's just do a guide or like a one pager, of just like a simple like reminding people. It doesn't necessarily need to be a huge full-blown e-learning module, and so we can definitely put money into things and really like engage the learner. But sometimes I'm just kind of blown away at like, oh, this is actually just a very simple solution and that works perfectly fine, you
Mm,
know? Um, but it kind of comes down to really like being really empathetical towards the learner and really identifying what they need and what is the true end result that we're trying to solve for. A lot of times we get clients come to us and they're just like, okay, what will it cost to do this thing, And we could just give them a price on that and like build it. But it's really fun to kind of like dive in a little bit further and really kind of get to the meat of like what is it that they're trying to do. And then I love the solution finding of, hey, we have this budget. How do we get the highest production tier um, for that budget? And there's so many different things that we could do for them. And so I love injecting sort of all kinds of different creative like approaches, for the
mm,
production of the learning design.
yeah.
We can pump out a whole bunch of different videos using AI now if you wanted to do something lower cost, or we could do something very tailored and more hands-on, and something that takes a little bit more time and do some really cool like motion graphics, very customized pieces. So you can play in that production tier according to budget and things like that.
Mm. And I
So
think, yeah, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
no, no, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think this is where the beauty of just having somebody or having a team of people, right, that understand that process, because we don't know what we don't know. And in my own experience, when I worked with like a marketing agency in the past, like, or like a personal brand coach, I feel
Yeah.
like I know a thing or two about branding, right? But then like when you talk to people that are that like that's their bread and butter. They live and breathe that topic and they have so much experience that you don't pay attention to certain things that they bring to your attention. You're like, wait a minute, I didn't even think about that. So I would
Yeah.
imagine it's the same with learning because when you say like communication, okay, well, like yeah, like okay, fine, I can do my own PowerPoint presentation, but when you see the enhanced version of it and you're like, oh, like I have a
Yeah.
designer I work with and she also does, and I was like, like my mind would never see it this way. It just
Uh-huh.
would never see it that way, you know? And I think that's the beauty of having people that actually have that eye. Like you literally have to have an eye for that creativity, you know, for that visuals, the visual creativity. Creativity comes in different forms, but I think for that visual aspect of it in particular, I think it's super, super, or just understanding how people learn. I'm sure you probably have a lot of people on your team that just kind of like think about the process of like learning, the stickiness of a topic or a flow of learning and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. There's so much crossover between marketing and promotional content and then learning content. That's really what we specialize in. Actually, we do a ton of promotional stuff too. And there's sort of an underlying tone to both those. I kind of look at like marketing as sort of your, you know, it's your end client, right? It's your clients that are that you're wanting to create a brand persona around where they want to be married to your product or your
Mm,
service. So when it comes to branding, I kind of think of it if your business or your organization is a person, what do they look and feel like? How do they make you feel? And why would you want to be married to your ideal client profile,
mm,
right? And so yeah, image, look, voice, tone, what are you solving for them that they need that's going to be near and dear to their heart to make them want to actually purchase or engage in a contract or service, right?
mm,
uh, we really try to apply that to learning as well. We look at our most of the learning design is for our like businesses, right? But it's we look at the employee training as your internal client. Your business should be serving that internal client to where there there's buy-in. They want to learn it, they see the purpose, what's in it for them, the why, what's in it for them.
mm-hmm.
And, and then having your brand injected into your learning is a big, big thing for us. And we try to really speak on behalf of the business
Yeah,
and you know, inject a lot of branding into it.
yeah,
So yeah, totally. And then like you say, the visual design and everything around that, it can make such a big difference when people are excited, um yeah, they're just being spoken to their heart kind of a thing,
mm,
and
yeah,
totally visual, and then all even voice tone. And then yeah, there's all types of different learning tips and tricks on, how many things, topics can people maintain in their head, and where do you cause cognitive overload, and what are they going to really walk away knowing or being able to do, and knowing how to chunk things up properly and kind of create like nice sequence to the learning. You know what I mean? To where
mm-hmm.
it sticks with them. So
Yeah, and I think the piece about branding is so important because I think that's what distinguishes companies today, and particularly
mm,
because the younger generation, I'm in talent development and talent recruitment, and
yeah,
so one of the biggest things I always push for like companies is like you have to have a really sexy brand because
yep,
that's what, especially the younger generations, that's what they want, and that comes with presentations as well. Like you can even, I mean, I attend a lot of presentation, I speak publicly, and I
mhm,
always look, there's a fellow, I don't know what to call him, an acquaintance, a colleague in the field, John Sene, and he delivers keynotes on like future of work. And his keynotes are like one of the most interesting visually, and it's like it would be just like an image, right?
mhm,
But you learn so much, there's so much emotion that goes into his presentations, and it's so impactful, and you see the difference between a great presentation and like an average presentation when you see the great ones, and you're like, and that alone just stands out. And I think, whether you're speaking publicly with a presentation, whether you're a company, having these kind of learning engagements, that speaks volumes because nothing is worse than logging into a platform and see, or going through a training and seeing a font or format from like 1980s,
yeah.
right? You like that says
That's a
so
turn
much.
off.
It's such a turnoff. And you're like,
Yeah.
you're questioning every decision you made about working with that company. You're like,
Hmm.
wow, like that's what they have.
Hmm.
So it's, I think a branding piece, I think if anything, like if people listening and they're like, well, it's fine. No, no, no. Like the branding is everything these days.
Oh, I totally agree. So one thing about that you mentioned there with who was it, John
John Sene,
Senai? Okay, yeah, like
Sane, I mess it up every now. I've known him for years. I mess it up every now. I'm sorry if he
all
listens.
good.
It's John Sene. It's Sanei. Yeah.
I'm sure
Anyway.
John's cool and he'll understand.
Yeah.
But one thing I think that what you described there, I kind of think about, you want to generate curiosity in your learner. You
Mm,
want them curious enough to where it holds their attention. It's kind of like a shiny object too. Like, so you want to catch their attention, and then you want to maintain a certain level of curiosity to where they feel like they're discovering something too, right? Like you want to create those discovery experiences and a sexy brand,
hmm
it could be there's crossover there, as far as like, oh, what is this? Got their attention, but then like, holding their attention where they want to go, deeper and discover it more, they're going to follow it. And so that's been one thing that we've been really, just an interesting concept about, discovery and creating something where they're curious. How
hmm
do you create a curious learner and things like that? And yeah, if you're doing things like that where it's not on brand and it doesn't look clean and nice, it's just a turn
hmm
off. Okay.
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to shift gears just a tad bit, but you've been at it for 12 years. What are some of the things, some of the biggest challenges, lessons you learned maybe about yourself, or things you run into as just like a business owner that you never thought of, especially when you grow a team to 50? That's not a small number. I don't think people
Yeah.
understand. Like it's hard to manage teams and people in general. It's not easy. So talk
Yeah.
to me about some of the personal kind of lessons, challenges that you've learned.
Yeah, there's so many, but growing up, I always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I always wanted to kind of be that, you know, to have that flexibility of, or just the autonomy, right, to kind of
hmm
do your own thing when you want to. I think that's every maybe millennials, thing, right? But just being in the service industry, one of the challenges is maintaining relationships and where you're project based, right? It's kind of like construction. It's like, okay, where's our next project? Where's our next project? And so one thing that I've realized recently, even within the last couple years, is that there's a really good book called The E-Myth. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one,
No.
but he talks about business owners, instead of working for your business, you want to be working on your business and have your business be your product, even though it's a
Mm.
service that you're providing to your end
Mm-hmm.
client, but really looking at your business as its own machine
Mm.
um, that is serving like the most amount of people, right? And delighting your employees or your first customers and then your second customers. And so one thing that I realized about team building is, you know, uh, you really have to be like dial in very specific. You want to create like a good manual about everything that you do, and there should be an answer for kind of everything within the business. And I've been reminded of that time and time again about really dialing in your process and kind of going back to branding just a little bit in order to maintain a love brand where people love you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to your people have to, especially in our space where there's so much interaction with the client. We're with our clients, because we're building custom e-learning or what, not just e-learning, but just custom learning design. We kind of partner with our client to build with them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like me, I'm kind of a people person. I love, meeting new people. I love meeting you. I like even doing this podcast. It doesn't scare me really much. It's fun to kind of talk and engage.
Yeah.
With your team members, it's like you kind of have to have somebody who's going to be able to maintain those relationships with your clients. And so, really identifying, you know, all the personality of your company and then everything that you do within that and really putting it down on paper. And then that's how you're able to delegate those things out to others. And I've had to learn the hard way how it's sort of like you know, if you don't have good SOPs in place and if you don't talk about and like sort of train people up on things that might seem natural to you as the entrepreneurial mind, if you're not focusing on that, then you kind of run the risk of not having it continue. And so that's kind of been something for us that we've been really focused on lately is dialing in our own processes, putting it down, and you kind of get to this stage where you need training and development. And it's been fun to kind of get to this point because I'm more empathetical towards our clients even. Because I'm like,
Mm,
oh, at this point of your maturity in your business, you know, this type of training is going to really, really benefit you. And so, yeah, in order to go from, uh, you know, 3 million, like, I don't know, you go to different types of revenue, but at about $3 million, a lot of companies just playing out because it's a people thing now at that point where it's, okay, how do we replicate this with a big workforce? And that's
hmm
kind of where the training and the development can come in and really help out. And so we've been applying a lot of what we teach, have built for other clients to our own business. And that's a funny situation to be in. But anyways, those are kind of
Yeah.
my thoughts a
Well,
little
it's like
bit.
one
And
of
then as
those.
far as,
It's
oh
easier
yeah, go
to
ahead.
give advice than to take it, right? Like it's that
Yeah,
goes back to
totally.
that same thing. It's easier
Yeah.
to give advice than to take it.
Yeah.
It's tough. I've learned a long time ago that I'm just not I've started a couple of things in the past and we've had teams.
Yeah.
And with my last business, my business partner was kind of managing the people, but I
Hmm.
do a lot of, and I've managed people. I manage people now. So I
Hmm.
have that experience. I'm good at it, but it's not what I want to spend my time doing. Like
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, and it takes a lot to come to that realization. I'm like, I'm really good at this other thing that I do and like leave the people, like whenever I decide to like build a company again,
Yeah.
if I even decide to go that route, I think
Yeah.
I'm going to outsource like the people development piece to somebody else and like leave me to do the marketing, the people relationships
Yeah.
externally, the
Yeah.
selling, the all of that, because it's really, really tough. And I think a lot of people have and that's why I like talking about these entrepreneurial journeys because a lot of people have this romanticized idea of like having or having this huge company and being the boss and all of that. It's like it's not like that at all, and it's very difficult, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's funny because I totally know exactly what you mean. I remember I was wanting to start a diesel mechanic company with my buddy. And we went and worked on this one truck one time, and this guy, uh, he was really well off. And I was like, "What did you end up doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I did a construction company." And he's like, "I stayed relatively small on purpose." And I always thought like, that's interesting. I always thought like go big, go big, go big. And his
Hmm.
brother ended up growing a massive, massive company. Um, but it was interesting because he said that the business was his whole life, which for some people that's awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he ended up doing really, really well and kept his business relatively small and was a little bit more, I guess, picky on his clients and, you know, uh, intentionally though didn't grow too big. He could have easily, he said,
Hmm.
but he's like, yeah, I had a lot of, free time. And so you don't think about the people management side. And 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 that's something that, is interesting. I kind of heard that, but when you kind of get there where you're crossing that bridge, it's kind of funny, just
Hmm.
because you hear all this advice and then it starts to really settle in once you're kind of living it.
Yeah.
But we've continued to grow, and I've decided that we've kind of crossed that bridge, and we want to continue to just go bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it presents its own new challenges. You kind of feel like you're starting another business again.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. That's exciting at the same time. So,
Yeah.
what are some industry trends you see for your industry? Like, everybody's, AI is impacting everybody and so on, and I feel
Mhm.
like everybody talks about it, but like, what are some things you're keeping an eye out for your industry? How are you preparing?
Yeah, we're trying to look a couple years down the road. I think at the very beginning of sort of this AI, new world with Chat GPT and everything like that, it was kind of like, oh boy, are we going to be completely out of a job here, soon? And I've kind of I've gone up and down on that sort of thought process a little bit. Um, I think, for one thing, AI is such an awesome thing to be leveraging. There's so many new things coming out, and we're staying up to speed on so many of them. We've done mid-journey, all the different cool things that you can do with creating, different assets for design. Hippo Video is an awesome AI tool to kind of create like avatars that like can walk around and they look human.
Mm.
Um, and you know, we've used a number of different AI tools. Mindsmith is a really cool company. They're actually based in Utah as well, but they're kind of directly competing against Rise, Articulate Rise,
Hmm.
and their thing's awesome because you can really build using prompts, but in sections, and then it's like their whole interface is just really simple and awesome to use. But recently, I've been really diving into. I have a friend named Zara Baker, um, and she's using like five or six different types of AI tools to kind of create different multimedia like videos and things like that. And they look so real, but she's doing music on it, she's doing video. And so for me, it's sort of like, boy, should I be scared or should I be like happy, excited? I think there's a little bit of both.
Hmm.
But I do think though that what it'll hopefully do is we'll be able to generate just more content, more learning
Hmm.
content. And I think that, yeah, there'll definitely be a shift. But I think one thing about the cool thing about the human part is sort of that strategy side where, and that heart side, I don't know if AI will ever like fully become human. Do you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And so, it kind of, it just kind of gives you more tools and resources. And I think that there'll be some really exciting things because we can generate content so much more easy. And where people didn't maybe want to do a lot of the e-learning before because it can take time, it's expensive,
Yeah.
it'll just become so much easier that it becomes a normal thing where we can just be able to generate more awesome content. And I think it'll
Yeah.
actually influence things for the better.
Yeah. Same here. I'm excited for AI. I think
Yeah.
I'm more nervous for people who are not embracing it. I
Yeah.
read a study the other day and it was like I don't remember the exact percentage at this point, but a really small percentage of people actually embracing AI and they're like I'm
Hmm.
talking in their day to day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's generational as well. I see a lot of
Hmm.
kind of older generations that are just not. They're just like, no, we're just gonna ride whatever we've been riding. We're gonna retire and call it a day. Like I don't need to learn
Yeah. There's gonna be
AI.
a change in
There's
skill for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I think for us like I'm also a millennial, elderly millennial, but I'm
Yeah.
also a millennial, and I think I'm also surprised that a lot of millennials are not using these tools as much as they should be, at least a learning and being at least be curious enough how it's impacting your kind of job and career and industry and so on. But I think like the younger generation is like all about it. Like I have some of my social media people, and like the girl, she's just, I mean, she's just all over it. Like she knows like all the trends, all the things, all the latest. And I'm like, I'm so like not like, I mean, I
Yeah.
could, I
And they
out of
pop up everywhere, right? Like they
it's
just like
everywhere.
there's so many. Yeah. Yeah, there's
It's
so
just,
many.
it's wild. It's wild. So like I feel like I'm doing a good job, but like when I looked at the younger generation, like the 20-year-olds, and I'm like, how, like what? Where did this come from? You know? So it's pretty interesting.
It
But
is.
yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm just again, I'm more nervous about everybody else who's not being curious about it and kind of avoiding it altogether. That's what makes me nervous because that from a career development perspective, I'm like, what's gonna happen to the job market? Like what's gonna
Yeah.
happen to organizations and companies?
Yeah.
And being able
Well,
to staff projects. Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I remember somebody telling me that at the beginning of kind of for an e-learning person, it's like, oh, this is a little bit scary, right? E-learning, like an AI scare, but
Yeah.
like, they're like, no, like, I think, whenever there's been some like groundbreaking thing, it's just like you say, embracing that and then like seeing where it goes.
Mm.
Because I've seen both sides too. I've also kind of seen like like I've kind of seen it taper a little bit where they're like, okay, like there's been a little bit of a dip as far as like, is this super freaky? And um, I've kind of seen a little bit of, okay, like even if it's a few years away, 4 or 5 years down the road when things are dramatically different than when they were, today. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think that's if you're embracing it, staying up on it, um, and just kind of leveraging it, trying to leverage it,
Yeah, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
And we'll
Yeah.
find out soon enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And worst case, we'll have the what is it, the newer link. So don't worry, you'll catch up eventually anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Wouldn't you
Yeah. And
just
another
put a
thing too
chip
is
in you?
pricing. Yeah, chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Got the chip, Neuralink there, but other thing too is like value-based pricing is interesting because I think with AI, it's sort of like I wonder how it'll affect costs, like market costs,
hmm
that's one where I'm trying to also try to forecast a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what do shops like us, what will they start to charge if it becomes super easy to make?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Well, operational cost is still going up.
yeah.
Right?
Right. That's true.
Like even like from a people's perspective, right? Or do you cut staff? Like what happens there? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's like it's all tied together, it's all connected. That becomes a
Yeah.
little bit tough.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, all good stuff ahead. I'm optimistic as always.
Yeah.
So I like to call myself an optimistic realist. So I keep it, I think it doesn't, it's good to know what's around the corner, but just be optimistic and keep pushing
Yeah.
forward. That's all we can really do.
Agreed. Yeah.
Before I ask you my last question, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Where do you hang
Oh,
out
thanks
at
so
the
much.
most?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah. Yeah. So our website, keylearningstudios.com. You can go on our website. There's a contact us form there, but yeah, you can just go to my LinkedIn, Cameron Brewer. Happy to go there. I have a calendar link. My email, cam@keylearningstudios.com. You're more than welcome to contact me directly. Um, yeah. So those three places are probably the best way to reach out.
Perfect. I'll make sure to put that all in the show notes. Last
Okay.
question I ask all of my guests is what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Ooh. Oh man.
Take
That's
your
a good
time.
one. That's a solid one. In life,
Hey, whatever. How whatever.
boy,
Doesn't whatever you want.
that's a really, 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 really good question to ask. That goes really, really deep. I could go way deep on that. You know, I'm kind of the mindset that like I think like 90%, probably nine, maybe I'm overly optimistic, but like 99% of people want to do good things. Maybe 95%. And I think one of my biggest things is I think it was Stephen R. Covey that said like listening to understand instead of what is it?
Listening to respond.
Yeah, listening to respond. I think communication, there's so much power in effective communication. And maybe it's just because of the stage of where I'm at within my business, but there's so many different like with even in a family or an organization, anywhere where you have multiple people. I mean, wars are started over like poor communication. You know what I mean? And so I think one thing, is if you can like really try to understand somebody, like, am I really understanding this person at a deeper level? You know what I mean? I think that
Mm,
like that's such a massively huge, um, I guess, skill, you know,
hmm
of understanding that like, yeah, people can poorly communicate. You know what I mean? And like words don't do things justice even.
hmm
We try to do our best to articulate ourselves through vocabulary, um, but that fails so much. And so sometimes you have to hit things at different angles. And so, yeah, just like asking the question, like, do I clearly understand that person? You know, I think that's like a really, really solid um, thing to ask ourselves.
I think
Yeah,
that's super solid. I like
yeah.
that. I have not had that one yet. I love
Yeah.
that. Awesome. Well, Cameron, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was great. It's fun. Thanks.